On this edition of Prime Sports NASCAR, brought to you by RaceReviewOnline.com, CandyBoost.net, and Covers.com. The Father's Day off weekend is behind us, and the boys are back in town as they go road course racing for the first time this season. And it's going to be at Sonoma with Kevin Harvick defending following a boring 10-second win last year. Complete driver analysis, the latest odds, picks, and more as Prime Sports NASCAR on the Prime Sports Radio Network starts now. All right, Thursday, June 21st, 2018. I'm Greg DePalma, and we're back talking NASCAR after the week off. And as we gear up for Week 16 of the 2018 season, make sure to visit Covers Experts at experts.covers.com. You can take 50% off any purchase. Use the promo code PRIME50. That's PRIME50. So the big story since we've been gone, boys, apparently, CJ, is no aero package racing this year. No new aero package racing this year.
Correct.
So, why?
So they gave a very broad, generic statement as to basically too difficult to implement in 2018 with points races and so on. They also couched it in the fact that they would like to take the time to make any necessary tweaks, thereby, optimizing aerodynamics to horsepower levels to make it a perfect package for 2019 versus trying to focus on doing additional races in 2018. It was, in layman's terms, it was a very generic excuse for the fact that they couldn't get everybody to agree to do it in a points race. So unfortunately, the earliest we can expect it will be sometime next year, which is just fantastic for everyone.
Okay, so Eric, so does that mean that even though we're not going to have the racing we want to see this year, that when we get to Atlanta next year, and I don't know, maybe every race, we're going to have this new package?
There's a possibility, but after what Steve O'Donnell said at Pocono a couple weeks ago, it kind of made it sound like it was coming this year, that NASCAR's like what they've seen, and this could really work, and then all of a sudden a few weeks later you get this. So at this point, I 100% agree with CJ. It all boils down to some of the teams and drivers just, they weren't on board. And now it, to me, sounds like a battle between NASCAR and them. So their broad statement kind of made it sound like, yes, we can see it again in 2019. But then again, CJ O'Donnell said this a couple weeks ago that we potentially could see it for up to 3 races this year, and now they're not even doing it. So how much do you want to believe from what they say? But, yeah, it's down to a really a struggle between certain drivers, and I know who some of them are.
Who are they?
Against NASCAR. Well, one of them is Brad Keselowski.
What's wrong with him?
He made a comment at Michigan that basically that's not real racing, and I take an issue with that the fact that, and I read a comment about this on one of these, I forget what post I saw this on, but a fan actually made a very valid point in comparing stick and ball sports to what like NASCAR's doing. In fact, that you have the NFL, we all know became a juggernaut. I know the attendance and ratings are split, but it's still the top sport juggernaut, and they made all these rule changes to what? Promote more scoring. Do you want to see touchdowns, fantasy football? They want the ball in the end zone. More scoring creates more fans and excitement. Look at the NBA.
Well, they also want more parity in the NFL, which
exactly.
worked.
Yep, it all worked. So then you got, but they wanted increased scoring, and it worked across the board.
Yeah, and the NBA, NBA needed to get out of that 90 San Antonio, 82 points wins games scenario, and they've upped the scoring again, and that's worked. And hockey, faster pace, that's working. No more neutral zone traps, so they've done their job.
So now you look at racing, and you've got drivers like Brad Keselowski and these quote-unquote traditionalists who they're not willing to adapt. The new race fan does not want to see a car win by 5 seconds and 4 cars on the lead lap. That is prehistoric racing, right? We should say that racing is what I grew up with in the 80s and 90s. But these these fans don't want to watch that anymore. That's not exciting. That
Nope.
is not an exciting race. Hence the ratings and the attendance. Everything's dropping. So why can't NASCAR evolve? Why can't they they've made a package that promotes side-by-side racing, which what fans want to see. And then my problem with Brad Keselowski is, why are you going to come out and call those fans out? Why are you going to say they're wrong, that we got to see true racing and single-file racing to where nobody can pass, and the car that wins by 10 seconds is a good race? To me, that's not racing anymore. Why can't we evolve like other sports evolve and give fans what they want to watch? Instead, you've got drivers like Brad Keselowski, former drivers like Mark Martin, Kyle Larson, other guys saying, well, I don't want to race like that. And Keselowski even made the comment that if NASCAR goes to this restrictor plate package at more races, that he and other drivers just won't race NASCAR anymore.
Good. Goodbye.
In a nutshell. And that's
See ya.
kind of what Kyle Petty basically said, that you're in a Penske car. If you want to say that, there's going to be others waiting behind you to take your ride that have no problem racing in this package. So that's where the power struggle lies.
Good. I'm glad that there's a bit.
Like
it sounds like we're in the beginning stages of a very healthy debate, which is really good, CJ. And I'm glad to hear it because the majority's on our side.
Absolutely, and you got to remember the people that don't want this to happen are the ones that have or think they have a perceived advantage over the rest of the field. So Keselowski is, Petty makes an excellent point. Keselowski is in a top team with the top engine manufacturer at the moment. Ford has dominated this entire season. Keselowski doesn't want to give that up. It's as simple as that. And you're right. You're exactly right. Look at every disciplinary action that has ever come about with some driver that they want to suspend or they want to levy a fine to. They always say NASCAR is bigger than you, the driver. NASCAR doesn't need you as an individual. You need NASCAR. So same rule applies here. See you later, Keselowski. Go find a different series.
Chances are, Eric, that Dale Earnhardt Jr. weighs in on this and actually takes a side.
I think pretty good. He was on NASCAR America last night, kind of touched on it, and he thought then, that's why I was a little shocked this announcement came today, because he was saying then that he was hearing that this could take place this year. So I think he's more on the side of, on the media side now, for what can help the sport grow. Granted, I don't know how popular it'll be in the drivers' RV lots, but I think most everybody on the outside, and like you said, the majority wants this package. I would say, but the only reason the other side is getting so loud, like Keselowski and the traditionalists, like that's not true racing, is because they are the minority and they're trying to make their voices louder than what it appears. But majority of the race fans and a lot of the teams are still on board, and I would say Earnhardt's going to take a side, and he's going to side with whatever's best for NASCAR in the future, which I think is the right side.
Sure.
Of using this package. And I think we will see it next year because NASCAR is going to look at the ratings and attendance and like, look, why did the All-Star race get so much attention?
Yeah.
What was on it? Why does Daytona and Talladega get so much attention? Look at the racing you get. So I think that we're going to eventually see it. It's just going to be a power struggle between now and then until you sees it, and they need to be like CJ said. We're NASCAR, you need us, we don't need you. That if the drivers say that, then show them the door. You don't see this in other series where you have a star quarterback come out and complain.
Where are they going to go?
Yeah.
Where's Keselowski going and Larson? They're not going anywhere.
Nowhere. Absolutely nowhere.
So they can just talk a good game, but they're not going anywhere. By the way, where is Tony Stewart? What's he doing these days?
That's a fantastic question.
He'd be a funny one to ask about this. I know he's been a lot. He's been at a few of the Cup races. He hasn't been at a lot. He's traveling a lot. He's racing still, but a lot. What's funny about him is he enters races under a totally different name.
Of course he does.
He never enters under Tony Stewart, which is really funny. He did one in Fort Wayne in Indiana a couple years ago, and I kid you not, I think his first name he put was Critter. And it turns out he shows up so people don't know he's there.
Okay.
And he takes his helmet off like, that's Tony Stewart. So he just likes it. He just wants to race. And I know he's actually been to a couple F1 races, I believe, on the Haas side. So he's kind of just taking it in everywhere. So I would be curious, though, what his take on this package would be, but I don't know if anybody's going to find him to even ask him.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he wasn't on side of change, knowing Tony Stewart. Okay, so we'll follow that for sure. Unfortunately, we're not going to get the racing this year, but look, if the fans just keep speaking up, and with social media out there today, they can do that, and especially if we just get more boring races this year. And CJ, we've talked an awful lot this year about the changes that have to be made to make this sport better. The package is at the top, but then the very last race, Michigan, we have another race that ends because of weather. And that, I'm sorry, but I don't care if that's rule number 12, rule number 4, rule number 15, but that's a rule that also has to be a new rule that has to be put in when they're making all of these changes. You cannot end these races because, look, we know that they easily could have ended that race. One solution, if they would have had freaking lights at the track.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that would have affected it would be the race distance as well. So what if the race was only scheduled for 130 laps? Everybody would have planned their strategies around it.
We've talked about that before. That's right.
Exactly.
If you know there's going to be a rain day, then tell everybody before the race, give them more than enough time to prepare and strategize. Hey, guys, we're having a bad weather situation coming up today. We are going to go out and we are going to eliminate the final stage. We're going to cut it in half or a quarter, and so everybody knows up front. And look, it may not be right exactly how everybody would want it, but it's a lot better than winning and shutting down the race because of rain. And nothing really irks me more. Unless, of course, hey, if I got money on the race and I win by freakish luck, I'm happy about it. But nothing irks me more than to hear a driver and a team go, oh, golly, crazily happy about winning a race that's been suspended by rain. I never understood that. I mean, what are you getting excited about by winning a race because rain came?
Yeah, it's a complete roll of the dice. It gets to the point where who's a better weather predictor in terms of when, and it's not even just a weather predictor because you can predict maybe when the raindrops start falling, but when does NASCAR actually decide to throw the caution flag, and when do they decide to actually cut the race? It's just ridiculous. I agree with you. I think there's honor for being at the front of the field. There's not really a great honor for being at the front of the field when circumstances happen to dictate that you win because of some freakish event, like you said. So Boyer was fast. Ford was fast.
Sure.
So, Stewart, Haas, top three. Absolutely, one of those cars deserved to win. Likely not Boyer. But, yeah, it was a shame. It's sad to see another race spoiled like that, and there's any number of things that could be done about it, whether it be lights, whether it be making the brave decision to cut it shorter. Just shortening races in general might help as well. Any of those things would help that situation.
Yeah, Eric, it's the only sport that, baseball, now they'll go through hell to try to get through, they can go 8 hours of a rain delay and then finally say, okay, we'll call it after 6 or something. But they got 162 games. Okay, so nobody freaking cares. As far as racing, these are important wins. A win can get you, we saw Buescher win one last year. He gets into the chase. Of course, that was stupid. So can't they do like golf and say, hey, weather's coming in the afternoon. We're going to let everybody know you better get to the track early. We're starting this race at 10 o'clock in the morning. And just replay the race at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on television, just like they do with golf. Who cares? I mean, as long as they can finish the race properly, that's the most important thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and what's funny is, and I need to find, I'll look it up after this and send it to you, and we can talk about it next week, is there's a rule in the rule book that says they can't start the race unless they know they can get the full race distance in.
Really?
So it just baffles me on why we're starting races when you know rain's coming. It's like it's in the rule book. And then I also agree with CJ. We could shorten it. I mean, if you know rain's coming, you're going to start it, knowing you're not going to get to the end. All 40 drivers in the same boat. If you sit them down in the drivers' meeting and say, look, we're not racing to the full 400 miles today. We're racing to 200 miles, halfway. That's what we're getting to. It's all the same boat. and everybody's on the same level playing field rather than get some jumbled fluke winner. And not that Boyer was a fluke winner, but I also think that Indian also showed everything that's also wrong with this NASCAR package that kind of tied into the restrictor plate package is how does a guy on 2 tires hold off the literal fastest guy of the whole season on brand new 4 tires?
Yeah.
How does that even happen?
Yeah. Well, how does that happen? Because when we previewed the race last week, we did talk about, and we do every week. We let everybody know whether certain tracks are good tracks for 2-tire stops or not. And we mentioned that Michigan was that you can. That's the one decent thing about Michigan and their boring races over the last few years is that you can you can gamble with 2 tires. So how did that work out?
It just worked aerodynamics again. You got the clean air. It's a track, as we talked about last week. It's repaved recently, so there's a lot of grip. So he had the grip, he had the tires, and obviously Ford's fast and Stuart Haas. So he had the speed and the tire grip. So yeah, he had the way to stay in front. So I guess that's the way he held him off was just that clean air, new grip on that track. But here you've got Kevin Harvick, who's got 5 wins this year, who led the most laps that race. So he had the quicker car, and he couldn't get by his own teammate, who had older tires than he did. So that just goes to show you that, again, this package, why can we not pass? Why can the faster car not get by?
Yeah.
And then the rain comes.
Yeah,
so,
not good. Yeah, not good. So we just gave you three easy ways that they could change things. Lights. Start the race earlier, cut the race shorter. I mean, come on. Pick one of the 3. Okay.
Well, and I don't know how baseball's got those tarps. I know it'd be really expensive.
Yeah, we talked about that too.
How has nobody figured out a way to hook that underneath the safer area?
I don't know.
Roll them out.
I don't know. Does anybody know, CJ? We talked about this a couple years ago. I mean, wouldn't that be an invention that somebody could get rich over?
Yeah, it sounds like the 3 of us need to go into a different business and figure that out.
Throw some sponsors on the thing, and we're good to go.
That's it, right around the track, the logo of the sponsor. So, and you just wait for the rain to end, and it's like 10 minutes, and you're right back on the track. So, I don't know. It's that's what...
Well, paint images of all, like airbrush, or however they need to do it, of the paint schemes of all 40 cars racing that weekend.
Of course you could.
Still got the cars on the track.
That's right.
You got the sponsorship plugs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then you're not even paying for it. They pay for it in sponsorship.
That's right. It's just another way to sell money. It just shows you that they need some really creative new minds at NASCAR. They've got some. I don't know what they got working there, but whatever working there is, they got to make some changes. So maybe when we were hearing about them selling, maybe that's part of it. They just need some fresh blood there because they're just in the old days, and things have to start changing. Okay, so last 10 minutes of the show, let's go over this race, the Save Mart 350 from Sonoma. And CJ, as I mentioned at the Open, Harvick won a boring 10-second race because there wasn't a caution for the last 56 laps last year. Matter of fact, the racing at Sonoma the last 2 years haven't really been that great, which I'm kind of a little bit worried about that because maybe this is just another trend with the same packages that have been out there. Now they're ruining road course racing too at Sonoma. But part of that too is the strategies. We've talked about that with Pocono as well. That you get all these crazy strategies going on, and then you threw in the stages last year, and your mind just blows up trying to figure out, well, who's got the advantage where exactly is everybody? I mean, if you take a look at Kyle Larson and AJ last year, they had the decision. They went ahead and decided that they were going to pit. I mean, they were going to pit after the first stage, second and third place. So they end up way back on the restart. And they're trying like hell to get back up front, and they're just driving way too fast, and they end up wrecking each other, and they're done. So is that supposed to? I mean, these throw in the stages with all the other stuff, and is that really what we want to see? Or 2 of the best drivers for the day get screwed?
No, absolutely. Those are 2 that you would expect to, on a course like Sonoma, be at the front, and you would want them obviously lasting until the end to be able to duke it out. Sonoma, you talk about track position. There is no place where track position means more than Sonoma. It's very tight, a ton of blind turns, really the only way to pass. There's really only one place you can pass, and that's down into the hairpin just before the start-finish straight. And then your only other option is to bump somebody from behind and spin them out so you get on by. So you end up with the beat-up fenders. It's a car thing. So the cars for this track being as narrow as it is, as hilly as it is, as flowing as it is, the cars aren't suited for this kind of track. So the teams have to find their way, and that's through strategy and track position is how they gain it. So you can have a very slow car, and you could spend the entire 110 laps out front because you've got a better pit stop strategy than anyone else.
Sure.
And I'm not sure you can do anything to the cars without getting completely new cars to change that. But you might want to think about maybe fuel tank size, maybe something like that could do it.
Yeah.
But aside from that, it's all about pit strategy. It's all about qualifying this weekend. I would love to see bump and runs. I'm just not sure how many people are brave enough to do that and make enemies going down this last stretch of 10 or 11 races before the chase or playoffs.
Interesting, Eric, because last year in the race as well, Kyle Busch was caught speeding on lap 23, and yet he was able to get back to 5th place until a tire issue ended his day, or his opportunity to win, actually, even though he still finished 5th. Clint Boyer was runner-up in the race and got caught for speeding on lap 48. So again, it's all luck in the fact that if you get yourself in trouble and you're going to be starting way back, there's just no way. But if you get yourself in trouble, then strategy comes in. The crew chiefs, their pre-game strategies or pre-race strategies are very important then. And I'm sure they probably have this all figured out as well. Okay, well, if we get an issue here, there, the other thing, they got to think real quick on their feet in order to get themselves a chance to win these races. But it's possible you can do that even if you get yourself in trouble. But you got to be lucky at this racetrack.
You do. It kind of runs like the way some of these IndyCar road course races go, and the biggest key is now, and first off, like David Reagan and Dale Earnhardt Jr. and a couple other drivers this week made good points about road racing in general, why, like this race alone had 9 straight years of a different winner and 11 of the last 12.
Yep.
And the reason by that, they said, is in the past, about a decade or so ago, you had your road course ringers who we don't really ever see anymore,
yep.
and you had most of these guys that were not road racers.
Nope.
Well, now he said they've taken it seriously. This new iRacing, simulators, all these guys have now taken road racing serious, where you've got about 25 guys that could win.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not seeing people make the mistakes anymore like they used to. They'd get offline, they'd spin. That was creating, honestly, better racing because people were making mistakes and somebody was passing them because of their mistake. Now, everybody's good there. They're all on the same level playing field.
It's like every other race.
So it is. It's hard to pass. So what let's help some of those guys is on the IndyCar side they look at, I know, is you want to, when you pit, you want to get a good in lap, meaning the lap you're coming into the pit, you want to make sure you don't have anybody in front of you slowing you up. You can go as hard as you can, get the best lap possible, and then when you pit, you want to also come out without any dirty air. You come out with clean air, you can be fast again, you go on fresh tires. So they call that in and out laps, and you want to have a good in and out lap because combined that could be faster than the leader and cars in front. So when they go through their pit sequence, maybe they're stuck in traffic, they're not getting a clean lap, they're coming out in traffic, they're slowed down, therefore you leapfrog them. So sometimes being in the back is an advantage for those guys because you can spread yourself out and get clean air for a good in and out lap.
Okay.
So that's why sometimes getting penalized how they did, because what they would do is go to the very end of that sequence. I think it's 3 to 5 laps now. When you get black flags, you got to pit within that time frame.
Okay.
They wait till they'll slow down a little bit and give up maybe a lap of speed to get a little bit more clean air to run really hard to come in. And then when they come in, they're actually topping off on fuel and getting new tires. Why not? You're already there.
Okay.
You're not going to go a lap down. But now you're coming out fast tires, full fuel run, and you can go longer than those guys that have already pit by maybe an extra 3-4 laps, but you've got clean air, and now you're going to come out and basically they call it flip the field. So sometimes getting penalized could be an advantage, and that's why you saw Boyer and Busch That's kind of a long-winded answer.
No, but hey,
that can happen.
no, it makes sense. It's crazy, but it makes sense. It's not by accident. All right, so top three: CJ 4-1, Harvick, Kyle, and Truex. And Harvick has got 6 top 10s in his last 8 races at Sonoma, 3 top 5s, defending champ. Kyle, meanwhile, has got 5 top 10s over his career, including 3 straight, 2 wins here. And Martin Truex Jr. Led 25 laps last year and probably would have won the race had he did not encounter engine issues on lap 85 because he was the clear best driver of the race. He does have 1 win when he led 51 laps in 2013. Who do you like out of those 3 right now?
Any one of them could win. And just like Eric said, these guys are all so good right now. They all take this type of racing so seriously that you kind of got to go with who's got the current advantage, and certainly that's Ford and Stewart-Haas. So therefore, that is why you say Kevin Harvick is the fastest until I see times of others that are faster than him in practice or qualifying. He's got to be at the top of the list.
Okay, Eric, before I let you go first, who do you like with those top 3? And give me some other contenders you like this week so far.
Yeah, I completely agree with CJ. Stewart-Haas went 1, 2, 3 at Michigan. They've won the last 2 years at Sonoma. Until someone says otherwise, you got to go with Ford and Harvick. That Harvick, ever since 2010, he's only had 2 finishes outside the top 10, 3 straight top 6s there. So I think he's your pick there as far as those 3 right now. Some long shots, honestly, I think this isn't one of his better tracks as far as finishing-wise goes, but I think you've got to go and look at Allmendinger because, 1, he's a good road racer. They put a lot of stock in this race. And 2, just for how the season's going, I think you're going to have a lot of guys that are between 10 and 18th in the point standings right now that they really can't afford to gamble a whole lot. They need all the points they can get.
Okay.
But someone like Allmendinger, this is his shot. This is his chance. It doesn't matter what he does. He's not going to make it on points. It's just they never have in that team before. They've got to win.
Sure.
This is his best shot. I think they can make some more calculated risks, and he's fast there anyway. So this is the race. I think you're going to see somebody that's already won this year, one of those 6 drivers win, or somebody that's completely a long shot, like an Allmendinger. Odds-wise, he's not a long shot, but every other week he is. So someone like that, or even Casey Kane, new crew chief this year. Since 2009, since the year he won, he's finished in the top 10 every year but 3 times. So he's actually got 4 top 9 finishes in his last 5 Sonoma starts. And we're taking kind of speed out of the equation here because, again, you could go strategy.
Sure.
He's going to be probably running mid-pack. He can have clean air on his last pit sequence, maybe get a lucky caution in the end, and voila, there you go. But another guy outside of them I actually think could win this week is Kurt Busch. He's really turned into a good road racer, and he's finished in the top 12 every year there since 2011. He finished second a couple years ago. He won in 2011. He's got Stewart-Haas equipment. He's got a Ford. Stewart-Haas won with Tony Stewart and Kevin Harvick the last 2 years. I think my pick right now would be Kurt Busch for the third straight win for Stewart-Haas.
Yeah, he's 8-1, so he is second choice after the 3 favorites with Clint Boyer just ahead of him, and he does make a lot of sense. 5 top 10s in his last 6 races this year heading into this race. Eric, appreciate it. RaceReviewOnline.com, and we'll see if we get ourselves a good race to talk about next week. What do we got, Chicago and then Daytona?
Yep, Chicago, Daytona, and then Kentucky after that. So you've got a road course this weekend and the super speedway 2 weeks after that. So we can really shake up some playoff standings here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, some night racing, too, coming up in a few weeks. Sounds good, Eric. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks. Have a good week.
You too. That's Eric Smith, RaceReviewOnline.com. And you could also follow him on Twitter at Eric_RaceReview. Going over a few of those drivers, CJ. AJ is 12-1. And that's not bad, because AJ over the last few years has been a pretty low favorite. Matter of fact, part of that, even at this track, has been the fact that he has started in the top 5 at this racetrack the last 4 races with 1 pole. He's led 60 laps. he's just having a hard time finishing the race. He's, for whatever reason, again, he could probably throw in the team. I mean, he does what he's supposed to do, but then whether it's the equipment, whether it's the team, the longer they go, the more issues they have, and they can't complete the race. And we talked about the issue we had last year with the decision to stay out and pit after the first stage and how that screwed them up. And then Kyle Larson, too. The two drivers that got screwed up last year. Larson's 25-1, and yet he was on the pole last year until he got the damaged situation. He led the first, I think he led about 9 laps early, but then he got damaged on lap 14 when Dale Earnhardt Jr. spun out. And that pretty much put him in the whole situation where he had to kind of take chances, and those chances screwed his day. But when you're looking for some long shots, AJ and especially Larson being 25-1, that's not a bad idea.
No, I would go for both of them, to be quite honest with you, because they both consistently qualify high at the track. Larson's never started outside of the top 5 the last 4 races at this track. Allmendinger started inside the top 5 as well. So it's a matter of them making the right calls. And I think in particular with AJ, Sonoma is a little bit more of an unforgiving track versus Watkins Glen. You can make a mistake, go off-road at Watkins Glen, come back on and not have any significant issues other than the lost time. If you go off track at Sonoma, your day is probably going to end up being over because the barriers are so close. Just the terrain offline is really rough. You're going to end up with some damage. I think that's caught both of them out in the past. But either one of them, are going to be great shots. The other name I hadn't heard yet that I think, depending on how he practices and qualifies, could be maybe considered a dark horse at this point. He led 12 laps last year. I would say Jimmy Johnson would be in that boat because he's one that's he's struggled so far this year. He's probably got to start picking out the tracks where he thinks he can make the gambles, the calculated gambles,
sure,
to be able to get in there. And I think Johnson with Chad Knaus at a track like this, he's won here before. He's a very good road course racer. It could be a good weekend for him as well.
Yeah, they were able to lead laps last year on strategy, and no better crew chief out there for strategy than Chad Knaus, like you said. Not a bad idea, 25-1, desperate for a win. Who would you go with between Bowyer and Kurt Busch? Bowyer 7-1, Kurt Busch is 8-1. So even though Bowyer 7 top 5s at this track, led 71 laps in his 2012 win, runner-up last year, you like Kurt Busch a little bit more. Why?
Yeah, hands down. I think Kurt Busch is the better road course racer. I think Bowyer is very good on the road courses. I think Kurt Busch has got that little bit of extra edge. Bowyer really likes this track. Busch really likes this track. I think Kurt's just got that little bit of extra on his side, particularly at Sonoma. That answer might change when we go to Watkins Glen, but in particular at this track, you got to go with Kurt Busch. I think he's a fantastic choice if you're not looking at the favorites.
All right. Okay. Who would you take? Denny Hamlin at 11-1 or Joey Logano at 12-1? Hamlin hasn't had a win yet this year. 3 top 5s at this track. You take a look at, let's see, 4th last year. Logano, meanwhile, 12th or better in 6 of his last 7 races at Sonoma. 2 top 5s in his last 3. And the only thing is Logano has only led 18 laps in 9 races.
Yeah, my gut would tell me Logano. However, looking at the statistics with the laps that he's led over the past few races at this track, you got to kind of give the nod to Denny Hamlin. He's been faster than Logano in each of the last 2 years here. So assuming that continues, you've got to choose Hamlin.
All right, and then you've got Keselowski and Blaney. Keselowski 16-1, Blaney 22-1. Keselowski was 3rd last year, led 17 laps. By the way, that was his only top 5 in 8 races, though. But he's been racing pretty well over his last 3 this season coming into this race, but he doesn't have a win. Neither does Ryan Blaney. He seems to be getting back, to finish in races. He was 9th in his 2nd career Cup race here last year.
That's an interesting question to compare these two because Blaney doesn't have the history. He has one race out of two that was pretty decent here. Keselowski, like you said, led to 17 laps last year, but that was really his only good finish at the track. He has one other top 10 in all of the 8 years that he's been here. So, just from a history standpoint, you probably got to go with Keselowski because he figured out a way to get out front for 17 laps last year. But if Blaney shows any kind of speed, I think he's going to be right up there too. Realistically, I think Blaney is more of a top 10 kind of guy, whereas Keselowski might have enough experience at the track to be able to make the right call in the last closing laps to be able to vault himself forward.
What happened to that Kyle Busch versus the kids situation we had before the season started? It hasn't worked out for the kids, except for Blaney a little bit. I mean, Chase Elliott, even though he just, 12th or better in his last 7, so that's fine, but still not where we expected yet. He was 8th in his second Cup race last year. He's 33-1 here. Then you have Daniel Suarez, who has just been on a bad run recently. He was 16th in his first Cup start here, 100-1. Eric Jones is 100-1, 25th last year in his first Cup race here. Eric Jones only has one top 5 all year. That is surprising.
Yeah, it really is so far, the performance of those three so far this year. You would have expected a lot more out of them, especially considering how Elliott and Jones and even Suarez to some extent performed toward the end of last season, particularly at Sonoma, though I would give the nod to Suarez. Jones did not click with this track last year at all. Elliott's a little bit in the same boat as Blaney. He's only got 2 starts here. One was bad, one was okay. Suarez has got a longer history on the road courses. He was pretty decent and finished 16th after starting 11th. That's not terrible for your first time out in the Cup Series at Sonoma when everybody's as good as they are, so I would expect him to continue improving and probably have a longer runway in terms of upside potential compared to the other two.
All right, sounds good, CJ. You're kicking our butts so far this year in our picks every Sunday, so keep it up.
Except when it rains.
Yeah, except when it rains, right? I mean, last week was like the first time I took Kevin Harvick all year because I don't like taking to Michigan. I don't like taking 2 or 3-1 shots. I said, all right, I'm going to take him anyway. I mean, and of course, what happens? The rain comes out, and he finishes in second. But that's why, you know what, you're better off if you're doing NASCAR, as we've talked about before, scratch the gambling each week. Futures are fine, but then also fantasy. That's probably the way to go in NASCAR. This way you don't have to worry about winning.
Agreed. Definitely agreed.
All right, CJ, enjoy the race. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. All right, that's CJ Radoon. Rotowire.com. You can check out CJ's reports twice a week. We set up the link here on the website for him. And also Eric Smith's reports from racereviewonline.com. And you can follow CJ at CJ Radoon. I got to be talking to Kenny Bruce soon, too. It's been a while. Maybe we'll get Kenny Bruce on in the next week or two and get his feelings about what's going on, especially with everything happening with what we've been talking about with the Aero package and such. Okay, that's going to wrap it up. Our programming on the network, we have one show coming up on Friday. That is our NHL Draft Preview Show at 11:30 a.m. with Jan Levine, also from RotoWire. And then on Saturday, we're going to have our NBA Draft Show. So that'll be a post-draft show with Jamal Murphy. We'll talk about what the Nets did at the draft, the Brooklyn Nets. And we'll talk about the NBA draft as well. So that'll be on Saturday. So we have Draft Talk NHL NBA Friday, Saturday. And that'll be it. Next week, we start our training camp previews for the NFL, for the Our Football Network. Looking forward to it. For CJ Radoon, for Eric Smith, I'm Greg DePalma. We'll see you next week on Prime Sports NASCAR.